Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another straight up solo. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at Rome, Fate of an Empire. Let's get started. Okay, folks, as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you have, I do really appreciate the support. Thank you very much. So, what is this game about? This game is about trying to accomplish several of these edicts. And each of the edicts has something specific on them that you need to do. And you need to do that and accomplish them at a certain amount, depending on your difficulty, in a specific number of rounds. Okay? And let me just be clear that this game is a solo only game, so there is no way you're doing anything else, as far as multiplayer. You can set this game up for a short game, which is just 3 rounds long, or a standard game, which is 4 rounds long. I am exactly halfway through a standard game of 4 rounds. And then you pick your difficulty level. I'm playing on normal, which is 3 full edicts. And then you use only the 2 highest glory points to figure out what you're going to be doing to win. So the edicts I haven't played are these over here, but it's really hard to see them, I'm sure, on the camera. So I'm going to show you kind of an example of an edict over here. Okay, so here's one that I could have easily had in play, and it tells me build 4 developments without using a card's boosted action, which I'll tell you about in a second. And as you do that, you keep track. And then you've got to build the aqueduct, which means throughout the game, you have to spend 5, then you have to spend 6, then you have to spend 8 water. If you do both of those things before the end of the game, you will have accomplished this edict. And then the 19 means that is going to be the amount of victory points you need to also gain in order to win, plus the other edicts that are out there. So it said gain 2, so that would be like, for instance, if I have both these edicts out here, then this 15, then I would have to use these 2 and not this. Okay, so I'd have to get 44 points to win, plus completely accomplish the edict. Now, if you do a shorter or an easier game, whatever, you flip it over, they give you less victory points and the edicts aren't as expensive. Okay, so for instance, the difference between this one and this one is 2, 3, and 7 water versus 5, 6, and 8. And then you only have to build 2 cards with the boosted ability, without the boosted ability versus 4. And so it all depends how much you want, like as far as the length you want to play and the difficulty, which I think is really cool. So you can customize this game for what you're going to do. Now, when you set the game up, you are going to set up a 5x5 grid of cards like this with all these territories out here and only the capital built. The other developed spots are things you're going to do throughout the game like you see here. And you do that by interacting with the market, gaining these development cards, and then spending them or spending resources to build them wherever your leader is. So let's go a little bit closer to that. All right. When you look at a card, for instance, if I wanted to get this card and I spent the gold required to get it from the market, I can either take it into my hand where it would potentially clog my hand, or I could put it in front of me at like an active project storage place. And if I do that, I have to pay 1 gold or take a strife per card that I have in this area. So if you don't want to clog your hand, you can hold on to it. But if you do, you're going to have to spend or take a penalty. Now, in order to build this, you're going to need to spend cards that are going to generate you 6 of these engineering resources here. I think that's what that is. And then you play it, and when you play it, sometimes they'll do something immediate, like this one says spend 2 of these mercantile to gain, I'm saying mercantile, it's the scales, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, to gain 1 of the food resources over here. But then you have it, you get these points, you can use it to produce food if you want. You immediately will get a bonus benefit on your leaderboard, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And then you can use this card with these influence tokens to flip the influence token and do this action. There are just so many different kinds of cards and actions in this game, tons of stuff, thanks to this mechanism right here of developing these areas. And those things are going to help you score points. They're going to help you do unique actions that are going to help you. All of it's going to help accomplish the edict in some way. Now, how do you do all this stuff? Well, this game is played in basically it's a card play game But just like games like Mage Knight, which everybody always compares everything to Mage Knight in the solo world, it seems, you have a normal way to play the card, and then you have a boosted way to play the card. And you can play a card from your hand to do exactly what it says. But if you want to play the boosted side, you would then need to spend a resource matching the color of the banner over here. So, for instance, I'd have to spend a water, and then I would be able to get the better part of it. And on your turn, you're going to be playing cards to generate those resources to do different things. Not resources, to generate the attributes to do different things. And also, like Mage Knight, you can buy better cards from the advanced attribute market up on top with gold, and they will do other things that are better, basically. So, look at the difference between these two cards, okay? Here, this one gets, two of those culture attributes. So does this one. But this gives you a way to pay a gold to get 5, or get 4, pay a gold to get 9. So you can see the difference. This is just two cards that generate the culture resource, but you can definitely tell, I think that's culture, you could definitely tell that these are all much more advanced, and they do a lot of different things. That would just have to be kind of a similar comparison. But you have a full deck of all these different advanced cards here that you're going to deal with throughout the game. The other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be moving around and trying to get rid of these enemy tokens. And the enemy tokens look like this. They have kind of like a value that you must meet to conquer them. And then if you can take this plus the attack value over there and spend that many military attributes, you don't take any penalty. You'll get this amount of points, glory points, and that amount of gold. If you only meet the 6, but don't quite meet all of the other ones, then you will take one strife card into your discard pile per attack value you didn't cover. But these guys are worth a lot of points in a lot of ways and a lot of gold, but they also unlock territories up here that you might want to interact with, because this tableau is dealt out in a random fashion. The other thing you can do is you can move around, like I've said before, and I'll show you how that works too. You can activate these trade agreements. And in order to do that, you will spend a certain amount of these resources that look like I think they're called, I don't know what they are. They look like the engineers or the navigation. I'm trying to find it because I would like to tell you what it is. They look like the navigation symbol, from or a measuring symbol, or a sac. What is that? It's a little telescope. Yeah. So technology. That's what it is. Apparently that represents technology, and that's fine because it is an ancient game. So you're going to spend technology, and when you do that, then you can do a short-term or a long-term agreement. A short-term agreement, you basically get something right now, and that's it. And you leave your trade agreements token over here in the center. Long-term, it'll usually pay you per turn throughout the rest of this round and into the next round, and then it will cancel. Once you are done, though, with the agreement, these trade tokens will stay on there, and they won't go away in this. They'll stand there in this red fashion. They won't go away unless you develop over the territory by building a building, like we talked about a second ago. So that's basically what you're doing. Now, each of the leaders has this bonus card here, and I'm going to show you this one again because I want you to be able to see it. But this leader here, Trajan, it shows you the ways that he moves up in different things. So, if, for instance, hand capacity up here for power as he goes up, you'll be moving this up. It'll give you the ability to hold more cards in your hand. As you move up stability, you'll get more trade tokens. If you move up wisdom, you'll get more of those influence tokens, which you play to activate actions and do other things. As you move up in capacity, you'll be able to move farther for each time you spend a card to do movement. And then there's something special here. It gives you benefits and some drawbacks. Okay, so each of these cards give you a couple of pluses and some minuses based on what they do. And there are 6 different leaders in the base or in the game. I don't know if I say base game, but there's no expansion that I know of. 6 leaders in this game. All of them are different. They feel a bit different too. And they also have different cards that go into your deck too to make it asymmetric and just a general feeling of differences while you play. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's pasted on asymmetry. I'd say it's actually pretty well put together, because the pluses and minuses, everything is very tight in this game. And those plus, minus, or plus one, minus one things, and the abilities, etc., that you're able to do really do change the way that the individual leaders feel. Okay, let me demonstrate a couple of turns now so that you can kind of see how this goes in play, all right? Now, I talked to you about playing cards for the actions. You can also play a card face down to get the attribute that it's, or the resource that it's generating if you need one. And you can play the card and just use it as a movement card, where you're going to put one of these movement tokens on there in order to move your leader around. So what am I trying to do in this game? Well, I've got 3 goals that I have to accomplish. One of them is very military-like. I had to defeat 5 different enemies on the board, which I've already done. And then I have to defeat this barbarian army, which requires 10 at a minimum military and up to 6 more to not take any hits. Well, I'm obviously not going to be able to do that right now, because I only have 1 card here that is going to help with military. So that's a problem. The other thing I need to do is I need to continue to build developments that are not adjacent to the capital. I have to have at least 8 of those. Well, I've built 5 so far, but I also need to start spending in these what look like forge or metal resources and into just that effort to get it done. And then finally, I have to have at least 4 active lasting agreements at one time, and then I can accomplish that. And at the end of the game, I have to have no more than 2 loan cards in my hand. Okay, so I have to do all that, and then I also have to score 38 points. So that's what I'm trying to do. Now, what I'm going to do, I've got my hand of cards here. There's 6 of them. And so what I'm going to first try to do is continue to work on the development side of things. So I've got to move from where I am. And I would like to see, are there any weak enemies I can attack here? This is only a 4, plus there's some strife. And I have some cards, actually, that give me things for having strife. Strife and loans. By the way, so you can lose the game if you ever overdraw the loan pile, which there's only 10 of these, or you try to overdraw the strife pile, there's only 10 of these. You will lose the game that way. And of course, you will lose if you get to the end and you don't accomplish your entire edict. And so that's kind of the way that it goes. All right, so let's see. Probably the best thing to do would be to figure out which card I don't want to use so I can move. This is nice in the fact that it can help me do some attributes. The chariot helps me to do more movement. So I'm going to play the chariot, and it says if you play this card for movement, you get 1 more movement. Right now, I'm still only getting 2 movement here. So I'm going to be able to set this to 3. It's just one of those little turn tokens. You can kind of turn as you use it. So I'm going to set it to 3. I'm going to play it right here, right in front of me. Let's do this so you can see where it is. I'll just play it to the side. And I bet there's going to be a glare on that side. Ugh, for pity's sake. All right, I'll play it to this side. Okay, so that is in play now, and it's got 3 movement points. So I'm going to start spending those to try to get around this board. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to see if maybe this one's not so strong. So let's move down here. So I move over here. Since I'm adjacent, I reveal. Okay, that's only 5. That's not bad. Because one of my Agrippa benefit for Augustus is it's -1 to the cost of conquering actions. So that means I actually have to have 4 military. Well, I can do that right here. Let's do it right now. So I'm going to play this guy for the boosted side. I'm going to spend 1 metal, and that gives me 4, which I need to beat him without taking a penalty. So we're going to put that over there. And I'm going to move with that movement right into here. And I will have accomplished what I was doing. See how he needed 4 to be able to conquer him, and then 1 more to avoid any penalty. So because I had a total of 5 a total of 4, but this takes 1 off, I was able to accomplish this without having any problems. So it gets me a gold, and it removes him from the board. I've already dealt with my situation here, but I really just wanted to do that to try to get more room because I have to build all these developments. Now, I need to, the one penalty he has is every single development is cost 1 extra gold. So it's actually more difficult for me to afford developments. So let's take a look at what this one is. This is the forum. So I can use this. First of all, it's worth 6 points, but it takes 10 of these, let's just say, trade resources. And that's a lot. I do not have a lot of cards that generate these. So this card is not really going to help me very much, or it's going to be very difficult to play, I should say. But it does give me some more capacity to move. I'm not going to have 5 gold or anything of that nature for a while. So that's the real tough part. So what you could do instead is you can cycle this deck. And in order to cycle the deck, you have to spend trade resource cards to discard these. And they don't cycle right at during the turn. They cycle at the end of the turn when the cleanup phase. So you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to hope to get a better card here. I'm going to play this one. It says 2 of these resources or draw a card. I'm going to draw a card. Maybe I'll get lucky and get some mercantile. And I did not. Oh, well, I have this. So this is good. So it's either 2 by itself or 4 or 3 of the mercantile that I'd like to use, the trade, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend one of these for the boosted. I'm going to use that for my trade. And I'm going to cycle this guy right out of here to try to move things down a little further, because I don't think I'm going to ever be able to build that. So I take him out, but I don't replenish right away. And the reason I have to do 3 is because that's what it costs to get that done. Well, what do I have left? I've got a loan card, which I could pay back, all right? But I don't have the ability to pay it back at the moment. So I'm going to just discard that one. And then, well, it actually goes into my discard pile. So it literally will go over here. It'll clog up my hand later, and I have to get rid of it if I'm not going to have problems with my edict. But we'll see. Now, it says these other ones. So I don't have to play everything I need to play in my hand at the time. I can hold on to them. And I think that's what I'm going to do at this moment. I'm going to hold on to these. So we're going to go to the cleanup phase. In the cleanup phase, the first thing I would do, do I have any more movement left? I have 1 movement left. So is there anything else I'd want to move? Because I lose the movement at the end of the turn. I don't think so. I think I'm fine with where I am. So what you basically do during the cleanup is you discard all the cards you've played. Put those in the discard. Any of these influence tokens, had I used them, which I didn't, I would discard them. If I don't use them, they stay on the board. And then you... let's see, you draw back to your hand limit and you refresh the market. So I'm going to draw it back to hand limit, which is 6. So I have 2 over here. That'll be 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oh, a bunch of loans. So getting my hand clogged pretty good there. I move the turn marker, and then I'm going to gain. So, well, that's the end of that turn. I'm going to advance the turn marker like I just did. Oh, I've got to cycle the market. So I'm going to move these over 1 and bring out a new one, making some of these other ones a little bit cheaper. Okay, so then I would start again, and the first thing I'll do is check active agreements, which I have. I have this, so I'd gain a water this turn. That's the only active agreement I've got going on right now. And so on. So I would keep doing that, keep playing cards, and until a couple things happen. Once I've exhausted my deck, then my round will be over. Or once I've moved a certain amount of turns up on this track here, depending on the round, my round would be over. So you have a bit of a timer. Your timer is either your cards, or if you try to slow play it too much, which you really can't, you'll top out there. So that makes it so that it's not cheap and silly. And again, you're going to try to do this in 3 or 4 rounds. You're going to try to accomplish the edicts. And if you do, you win. And if you don't, you lose. All right, let me tell you what I think about it. So first I will say this. What a pleasant surprise that this game is so deep and so interesting to play. I backed it. I looked at it, and it was kind of on a whim. I think I saw an ad for it, maybe on Facebook or something like that. And I looked at it, I'm like, okay, that kind of looks interesting. But I had no idea that I was going to crack open the gem of a game like I have here. This is first of all and foremost a complete solo game. There is no automa, nothing to work on. You are basically trying to accomplish these goals, and you're doing it with multi-use cards that can be boosted. in a hand management and a deck building kind of system with all sorts of really cool but varied actions on the board itself that you'll be putting out. Just really, really interesting and very good. So huge kudos to the designer who pulled this off with literally nothing more than this amount of components. It's one of the few, I think probably the only game that I've really played that has as much depth for being this small, except for maybe the tiny epic such and suches. But usually the tiny epic such and suches are a little bit more hemmed in, I guess I would say, with what you're doing. Sometimes they come out fairly simply. Not all of them. I really like Tiny Epic Dungeons, great game. But this game really nails it. It really does. I think it's very fun to try to solve the puzzle. It's very fun to try to figure out how you're going to get what you're doing done. You're trying to do multiple different things. You have just a lot of stuff to juggle, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels like a streamlined, non-bloated, very, very good solo game. And I really was shocked it was this much fun. Now, I have a couple of things that are a little bit negative on it. First of all, I hate this box. I'm sorry. And I hate it because barely everything fits in there, even though it does. But also, I can't sleeve my cards. Second of all, I can't sleeve my cards because these are some weird card designs. I don't know, or the weird card sizes. I've never found, or I don't even know what this is. It's a very unstandard card. Now, maybe I'll find some sleeves someplace that will work, but right now I have not. And you know me, I like to sleeve my cards, especially when I'm playing a deck building game, because I'm going to be handling them and I want to shuffle them, etc., etc. But these I cannot sleeve, so I have a problem with that. Third, the rule book, while it was very functional, because it's so small, contains almost no examples. So it was effective in getting all the rules across, and it is fairly unambiguous, which I appreciate, but there's not a lot of examples that you can look to see what you're going to be doing. Now, it's got some good figures and everything else, but it would have benefited from a bigger book. Again, back to this. Had this been bigger, then they could have done a bigger rule book. They could have had more space. I could have sleeved my cards. It would have fit in there. Because even if I do sleeve my cards, now I can't fit them in here. So that's the only thing that I would knock it on. And those are just production things. Everything else, I think, is just fantastic. Gameplay, choices, decisions, the way it links together, all the stuff here is a lot of fun. It really is. And because you have asymmetric leaders and asymmetric deck building and variable goals, there is just a ton to enjoy in this game. You set it up and you are playing a heavily strategy-focused game with some tactical elements, right? Because your strategy has to be all about those edict cards. Now, how you do it, that's where the tactics come in. But you know exactly what you're trying to do from the beginning, okay? So you know exactly what it is. And how the cards come out is, going to be completely different. And there's all that stuff which makes it not just a complete simulation, which I appreciate because you got to have some of that to make a game flow like that. Otherwise, it becomes almost too dry and too programmatic, but not here. Just everything was really, really good. So great game. Highly recommended if you are a solo player, especially a solo-only player, obviously, because that's all this is. And I like how they also included the shorter or the longer. You don't get anything, you're not missing anything by going for a shorter game if you want, because it just tightens things up. It makes it so that your goals are a little less. The only thing I guess is that there isn't going to be so much you're going to be doing, so you'll be using less of the board and things like that. But if you just want to play it a little bit shorter, there you go. If you want to do the long game, you could do the longer game. It seems like the time frames are pretty realistic, I would say, once you know the gameplay. So you're not in for this. This is not going to be a 2.5, 3 hour game by any means. It's 60 to 90 minutes. It's a pretty good benchmark for what you're going to be doing. So overall, really, really good game. You should definitely check it out if what I showed you looks interesting. If it didn't, if you're like, I'm not sure, I didn't really leave anything out for the most part. You saw kind of what's going on. So there's nothing else hidden. If you didn't love it or didn't get excited about what you saw, then you're probably not going to be excited to get this game. But really cool. I think it's awesome. Check it out if you liked what you saw. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, everybody. And whatever you do in the future, I really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy.